what is to come, well, who can say? In 9 days' time it will be your birthday, my angel. Last night I bought a birthday present for you, but unless I can be assured of its safe delivery by post, I will save it until I come home. That was 3 years later, though God only knows when that will be.
Jack will tell you, I'm not sure how true it is, but it must because he says so, that we wrote to each other every day.
Well, I wrote to you every day.
Yes. You didn't get letters every day, you got a whole batch at a time, and they were little, they used to photograph and diminish the letters, aerographs they were called.
We met whilst both on leave from the army, and we established a friendship which continued on our various leaves.
Jack never knew, nobody knew what I did, and we weren't allowed to talk about it after the war was over. What I actually did was take high-speed Morse code signals on very, very large receivers, wireless receivers, big set rooms with everybody listening in, and you had to take down a certain station or stations that you were allocated, and you wrote down this in blocks of 5. When that was collected, that went to Bletchley Park, and they did the early research on that, and then the big knobs took over.
I went off to India, which was in 1943. So we sailed out across the Atlantic to the coast of Newfoundland, down that coast and back. That's why it was so long. Also to evade the German U-boats. So it was a bit hazardous journey. And as we entered the Mediterranean, yes, we had the pleasure of being aerial torpedoed by the Germans, who were still in possession of Crete. Well, we lost a few boats with personnel. That was one of the fortunate ones.
Jack wrote and said, I'm being demobbed in June 46.
June 46.
And can we get married? Will you arrange a wedding? And will you arrange a honeymoon? Like a fool, I said yes.
You see, by this time the war was over. It had been over a year. And we regarded ourselves as back as civilians. I went to see him, I said, we're down to be repatriated. He said, oh yes, you've been flown home, it takes 2 days. I said, oh, we'll be going on Dakotas. Yes. I said, we're not going. What did you say? I said, we're not going. We are not going on Dakotas. He looked very angry and said, get out. About a week later, he sent for me. He said, look, Mark, it's the only way you could go home by sea. There's, in 2 weeks' time, there is a hospital boat leaving Bombay, and if you can assemble a staff, you could go home.
So I arranged a wedding, and we had to be married by special license because he hadn't been back in the country for 3 weeks. So we were married within 3 weeks of him coming home.
I was demobbed in York on the 12th. Min travelled to York to greet me, and considering that it was 3 years since we previously met, it was going to be a very hazardous and rather strange meeting. We had both changed. We didn't know what the future would hold, but I had already requested, Min said ordered, I had already requested the booking of a wedding, a honeymoon, conditional upon it being a good angling spot, which it was.
Everybody said, you can't have a month's honeymoon. And we said, we can. We've waited 3.5 years for it. We're having a month's honeymoon. And the army has given us some money when we came out, and we'll spend it. And we did. So that's where we got to. And eventually we found a little flat in Chapeltown. And then I was supposed to be going back to work. Jack was already in practice. And I was supposed to be going back to work. Found I was pregnant, and Ruth was born just over a year later.
And here we are, 68 years later. The rest is history.